Tracy Quartermain's hidden battle, a secret that could destroy the family. The Quartermain family has endured unimaginable heartbreak with Monica's recent passing, but an even more devastating storm is brewing beneath the surface. Tracy Quartermain, the sharp-tongued matriarch who has weathered countless family dramas, faces her most challenging battle yet, and she's determined to fight alone, even if it costs her everything. In the days following Monica's peaceful death, Tracy has been overwhelmed by a grief deeper than anyone realizes. As she walks through the halls of the Quartermain mansion, each room echoes with memories of loved ones who are no longer there. Her parents Edward and Leela, her brother Alan, and now Monica all gone, leaving Tracy feeling like one of the last standing monuments of a bygone era. The burden of being among the few remaining from her generation has taken a visible toll on Tracy. Friends and family members have noticed her increasing exhaustion, but they've attributed it to the natural grief process. What they don't realize is that Tracy's fatigue runs much deeper than emotional pain. Her body is harboring a secret that threatens to shatter what remains of the Quartermain legacy. During Monica's funeral preparations, Tracy pushed herself beyond her limits, handling arrangements and comforting family members while her own strength waned. The stress of losing another family member, combined with her determination to maintain her role as the family's backbone, has left her physically depleted in ways that concern those closest to her. A daughter's concern and a mother's stubbornness. Brooklyn Quartermain has always had a complicated relationship with her grandmother, but Monica's death has brought them closer together in their shared grief. As one of the most perceptive members of the family, Brooklyn has been the first to notice subtle changes in Tracy's behavior and appearance that others have overlooked. "Grandmother, you look exhausted," Brooklyn observed during one of their recent conversations about Monica's memorial service. "When was the last time you had a proper medical checkup?" Tracy's typical response was to deflect with her characteristic wit and sarcasm, but Brooklyn persisted. She pointed out that Tracy had been unusually quiet during family meetings, had lost weight despite claiming to eat normally, and seemed to tire more easily during conversations. These observations, combined with Tracy's occasional winces of discomfort when she thought no one was looking, convinced Brooklyn that something more serious might be at play. The concerned granddaughter enlisted Ned's help in approaching Tracy about seeking medical attention. Together, they presented a united front, arguing that the family couldn't afford to lose another beloved member, and that Tracy owed it to the man, to Monica's memory, to take care of herself. Initially resistant to the idea of medical intervention, Tracy eventually agreed to visit General Hospital for what she dismissed as a routine checkup, to appease the worry-warts in the family. Little did she know that this seemingly simple appointment would change everything. The devastating diagnosis. The visit to General Hospital began routinely enough, with Tracy maintaining her usual composure and dry humor even as the medical staff conducted their examinations. Blood work, imaging studies, and a thorough physical exam were ordered as part of a comprehensive health assessment. For someone of Tracy's age, who had been experiencing unexplained fatigue and weight loss, when the results came back, the attending physician's expression told Tracy everything she needed to know. Before he even spoke the words, the diagnosis hit like a thunderbolt. Hepatocellular carcinoma, liver cancer, and, based on the imaging and blood markers, it was already in an advanced stage. "Mrs. Quartermain," the doctor began gently, "I'm afraid the news isn't what we hoped for. The cancer appears to have been developing for some time, which explains the symptoms you've been experiencing: fatigue, weight loss, and general feeling of being unwell." The prognosis was even more devastating than the diagnosis itself. Given Tracy's age and the cancer's progression, treatment options were limited, and even with aggressive intervention, the timeline was measured in months rather than years. The doctor explained that liver cancer in elderly patients often presents late in its course, making it particularly challenging to treat effectively. Tracy listened to the medical details with the same stoic composure she had maintained through decades of family crises, but inside, her world was crumbling. The irony wasn't lost on her. After surviving countless Quartermain family dramas, business battles, and personal betrayals, it would be her own body that delivered the final blow, a secret worth keeping. As the doctor finished explaining treatment options and next steps, Tracy made a decision that would define her remaining time. She would keep this diagnosis completely to herself. The Quartermain family had endured too much pain already, and she refused to burden them with another crisis while they were still grieving Monica's loss. "Doctor, I need you to understand something," Tracy said with steely determination. This information stays between us. My family has been through enough, and I won't have them spending their energy worrying about something they can't fix. She insisted that all medical records and communications be kept strictly confidential, even going so far as to arrange for future appointments under an assumed name, to avoid any chance of discovery. Tracy's reasoning was both selfless and characteristically stubborn. The family business needed strong leadership during this transitional period, and she wouldn't allow her illness to create the kind of chaos and uncertainty that could destroy everything the Quartermains had built. The decision also reflected Tracy's deep-seated need to maintain control, even in the face of her own mortality. Throughout her life, she had been the one to solve problems, fight battles, and protect the family's interests. The idea of becoming vulnerable and dependent on others was almost as frightening to her as the disease itself. Maintaining the facade. Returning home from the hospital, Tracy immediately threw herself into the task of appearing completely normal, while secretly beginning to put her affairs in order. She increased her involvement in ELQ business matters, ostensibly to help the company navigate the post-Monica transition, but actually to ensure everything would be properly arranged for her eventual absence. Her performance was masterful, displaying all the sharp wit and commanding presence that had defined her for decades. During family dinners, she dominated conversations with her typical mix of sarcasm and shrewd observations about Port Charles politics. In business meetings, she remained as formidable as ever, making decisions with the kind of long-term thinking that convinced everyone she was planning to be around for many years to come. But maintaining this facade required enormous energy that Tracy could increasingly ill afford. The cancer symptoms persistent fatigue, abdominal discomfort, and loss of appetite began to worsen, forcing her to become creative about hiding her condition. She began taking frequent business trips that were actually rest periods, claiming urgent ELQ matters required her attention in various cities when she was really recovering from particularly difficult days. The weight loss became more noticeable despite her efforts to disguise it. With carefully chosen clothing and strategic positioning during family photos, her complexion occasionally took on the subtle yellowing that can indicate liver problems, but she attributed any comments to poor lighting or needing more sleep. The perceptive eyes of family. Despite Tracy's careful performance, both Brooklyn and Ned began to notice inconsistencies in her behavior that raised new concerns. Brooklyn observed that her grandmother's famous appetite for both food and conflict seemed diminished, and she often appeared lost in thought during conversations that would typically have her full engagement. Ned noticed that Tracy's business decisions, while still sound, reflected an unusual focus on succession planning and long-term stability, rather than the aggressive expansion strategy she typically favored. She was also spending more time reviewing legal documents and meeting with attorneys, claiming it was routine business maintenance, but displaying an urgency that suggested otherwise. Most tellingly, Tracy had begun expressing sentiments that seemed out of character for someone known for her combative nature and determination to outlast all her enemies. During quiet moments, she would make comments about hoping the family would remember her fondly, or expressing pride in how capable the younger generation had become. Statements that hinted at someone preparing for an exit rather than planning for a future. The family's concern was compounded by Tracy's mysterious disappearance shortly after Monica's funeral, when she left the mansion without explanation, taking only an overnight bag and some of Lila's jewelry. While Brooklyn and Ned eventually tracked her down, Tracy's explanation for the sudden trip was vague and unsatisfying, leading them to wonder if their grandmother was dealing with problems she wasn't sharing with the family. The inevitable discovery. As any soap opera viewer knows, secrets in Port Charles have a way of revealing themselves at the most dramatic possible moments, and Tracy's diagnosis will be no exception. Both Brooklyn and Ned possess the intelligence and determination necessary to uncover the truth, especially when someone they love is involved. Brooklyn's investigative instincts, honed through years of dealing with family mysteries and business intrigue, will likely lead her to discover inconsistencies in Tracy's recent activities, whether through overheard phone calls, unexplained medical appointments, or simply the accumulation of too many small details that don't add up. The truth will eventually surface. Ned's more methodical approach to problem solving will contribute to the discovery as well. His attention to Tracy's business activities and legal preparations will reveal patterns that suggest someone preparing for a significant life change, combined with his genuine concern for his mother's well-being. This will drive him to investigate further despite Tracy's attempts to maintain her privacy. The revelation, when it comes, will devastate the family in ways Tracy never intended. Rather than sparing them pain, her secrecy will create a double trauma. The shock of her diagnosis combined with the hurt of being excluded from such a crucial family matter. The very people she was trying to protect will feel betrayed by her lack of trust in their ability to handle the truth and support her through the crisis. The emotional reckoning. When Tracy's secret is finally exposed, the family dynamic will shift dramatically as everyone struggles to process not only her diagnosis, but also her decision to face it alone. Brooklyn will likely feel guilty about not pushing harder for medical attention sooner, while Ned will be torn between respecting his mother's wishes and his desire to help her fight the disease. The revelation will also force Tracy to confront her own fears about vulnerability and dependence, themes that have run through her character for decades. Her lifelong pattern of maintaining control through information and strategic planning will be challenged by a situation where control is largely an illusion, and the outcome is beyond her influence. This crisis will test the Quartermain family bonds in profound ways, potentially bringing them closer together through shared adversity or creating new divisions. Based on different approaches to handling Tracy's condition, the family's response to her secretiveness will reveal much about their individual characters and their collective ability to support each other during the most difficult of circumstances. As Tracy Quartermain faces the greatest challenge of her remarkable life, the question remains, will she allow her family to stand beside her in this final battle, or will her determination to protect them ultimately push them away when she needs them most? In true soap opera fashion, the answer will likely involve dramatic revelations, emotional confrontations, and ultimately, the kind of family reconciliation that makes viewers reach for their tissues, while appreciating the enduring power of love in the face of life's greatest challenges. Next, we will learn about the heartbreaking emotional journey that awaits young Scout Quartermain, as she grapples with devastating loss while witnessing miraculous returns all around Port Charles. Scout's devastating question. The recent wave of shocking resurrections sweeping through Port Charles has created an atmosphere of both hope and confusion, particularly for the children who have witnessed these seemingly impossible homecomings. Scout Quartermain, already reeling from the profound losses of both her beloved grandmother Monica Quartermain and her cherished mother Sam McCall, finds herself in the eye of an emotional storm that threatens to overwhelm her young heart as she observes the miraculous return of Britt Westburn, a woman everyone believed had perished forever. Scout's innocent mind begins to formulate questions that could shatter the careful emotional equilibrium her family has worked so desperately to maintain. The sight of Britt walking through the halls of General Hospital, very much alive and breathing, plants a dangerous seed of hope in Scout's vulnerable psyche that threatens to bloom into something far more complex and potentially devastating. The miracle precedent. Nathan West's equally stunning resurrection only serves to compound the confusion, swirling through Scout's developing understanding of life and death. The young girl, who has already endured more loss than most children her age, suddenly finds herself surrounded by living proof that death might not be the final chapter she was taught to believe. These back from the dead revelations create a perfect storm of hope and desperation within Scout's grieving heart, leading her to contemplate possibilities that could either heal or further wound her already fragile emotional state. The psychological impact of witnessing these impossible returns cannot be understated, especially for a child who has been forced to confront mortality at such a tender age. Scout's innocent logic begins to work overtime, connecting dots that adults would recognize as dangerous territory, but which seem perfectly reasonable to a young mind desperate for reunion with her lost loved ones. The heartbreaking inquiry. When Scout finally musters the courage to voice her burning question, the adults in her life will face one of the most challenging conversations they've ever navigated. Whether she approaches her father Drew Kane with his protective instincts and deep understanding of loss, or turns to Willow Tate with her gentle maternal nature, or seeks comfort from Elizabeth Baldwin with her nursing background and experience with grief, the conversation promises to be emotionally charged and delicate. The timing of Scout's inquiry couldn't be more precarious, as the entire Port Charles community struggles to process the implications of these miraculous returns. Her question about Sam's potential resurrection will force whoever she asks to navigate the treacherous waters between crushing a child's hope and maintaining the painful truth about permanent loss. The adults around her understand that giving Scout false hope could be psychologically damaging, yet they also recognize her desperate need for comfort and connection. Comparative grief and childhood logic Scout's developing mind naturally draws comparisons between her situation and that of other children in Port Charles who have experienced their own versions of miraculous reunions. When she observes James West celebrating his father Nathan's impossible return, or witnesses Rocco Falcone's joy at having his surrogate mother back in his life, the contrast with her own permanent loss becomes almost unbearable. This comparative analysis, while completely natural for a child, creates an additional layer of grief that compounds her already significant emotional burden. Scout's innocent questions about fairness and why some families receive miracles, while others continue to suffer, will challenge even the most experienced caregivers to provide meaningful comfort without making promises they cannot keep. The delicate response strategy. The adults tasked with responding to Scout's heartbreaking inquiry will need to employ extraordinary sensitivity and wisdom to navigate this emotional minefield successfully. Elizabeth Baldwin, with her extensive experience as both a mother and a healthcare professional, might take the lead in crafting a response that acknowledges Scout's pain, while gently guiding her toward acceptance of Sam's permanent absence. The conversation will likely emphasize how Sam continues to live on in the hearts and memories of everyone who loved her, transforming the concept of eternal presence from physical reality to emotional truth. This delicate balance between honoring Scout's grief and preventing the development of unhealthy denial will require careful attention to both her immediate emotional needs and her long-term psychological development, future possibilities, and hope. Despite the current emphasis on helping Scout accept Sam's death as permanent, the unpredictable nature of soap opera storytelling leaves room for unexpected developments in the future. Should Kelly Monaco ever negotiate a return to the role, or should the show's writers decide to recast the character of Sam McCall, Scout's seemingly impossible dream could potentially become reality. This possibility, while currently remote, adds another layer of complexity to how the adults in Scout's life approach her questions and manage her expectations. The delicate balance between maintaining realistic expectations while not completely extinguishing hope represents one of the most challenging aspects of supporting a grieving child in an environment where the impossible has recently become possible. The ongoing journey. Scout's emotional journey through grief, hope, and eventual acceptance promises to be one of the most compelling and heartbreaking storylines in General Hospital's current narrative landscape. Her struggle to understand why some families receive miraculous second chances, while others must learn to live with permanent loss, reflects the complex nature of grief and recovery in both fictional and real-world contexts. The coming episodes will undoubtedly explore the ripple effects of Scout's inquiry, examining how her questions impact not only her own healing process, but also the emotional well-being of the adults who love and support her. This storyline has the potential to provide viewers with meaningful insights into childhood grief, while maintaining the dramatic tension that makes General Hospital such compelling television.